Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. It's Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and episode 420, Why Trump is So Disappointing. And I figured, well, I'm losing listeners because I'm bashing on Trump, so why not just keep on going, right? Episode 420, I should have done a drug episode, but I only thought of it after I wrote down the episode number. So anyway, so this topic is very personal for me because I voted for him. Voted for Trump because Harris was ridiculously fake, and it was so obvious that she was fake. And it's a wonder that anyone would believe it, but that the people behind her wanted to continue to have illegal immigration, also to promote more war, especially on the behalf of Ukraine and Israel, because Israel was beating the war drums pretty loud at the same time. And so I believe that the United States would have been much, much worse off with Harris, admittedly keeping in mind that it is possible that Trump would be captured, that they would turn him as well. But, there was always that hope. I also saw a clip today of Hillary Clinton saying that when she becomes president, that she would bomb Iran. Right. So basically, the bombing of Iran is always the plan, always moving towards it. And so perhaps the way that events have unfolded over the last few years since 2016, that the bombing of Iran just had to be delayed somewhat. But eventually, all the plans are going to be enacted, just like all the countries that were supposed to be bombed back in what is it, the 1990s uh, or the early 2000s, right? That they were going to get bombed, and now they got bombed. Now, I voted for Trump because he said he was pro-peace, because he was censored, he was shot, he was the victim of legal warfare, weaponized laws for 6 to 8 years. And I figured, man, a person who had to endure all of that and get through it all, he has to have some sense of justice. But I should have known better. We're talking about Trump here. And is his age, I think, really is becoming a factor. I do believe that his age is affecting him, whether it's that his mental acuity is slipping or because he's softer, right? And so maybe his family was threatened. And so, out of compassion and care for his family, he's just going to do whatever he's told. Um, so I was hoping, though, he would be better because he knew what it was like to be a victim of lawfare, to know what it's like to be a target because of the things that you say. Um, and he should have also then realized how easy it was for Democrats to weaponize the law, and so that maybe he should do something about it. Otherwise, it'll happen again to someone else in the future. But, you know, that would mean that Trump would have to think about other people other than his family, right? Um, but most, and particularly because he said he was pro-peace. And I took into consideration the fact that he was bombastic and he was going over the top with his pro-peace rhetoric, but that eventually he would move in that direction. But of course, the Ukraine war is still going on, and now we're involved in a different war. But so he's disappointed, right? Uh, I was hoping that after he got shot and was almost killed, and I'm still on the side of thinking that it was not staged, it wasn't acted, because people did die and the shooter was murdered. So, um, I tend to think that it was for real. Also, because that night it came out that there were three troop groups, brigades moving towards the Middle East. Why? Right? It wasn't just a simple exercise, but they were already on the move, so you can imagine. And Netanyahu was scheduled to come to the United States. And once Trump survived, his plane turned around. So I got the feeling that there were a lot of, there was a plan in place. He gets shot, he gets killed. Israel comes to visit America and says, oh, we got to do this. Then troops are already in place. And so then they invade Iran or some ridiculous plan like that. So I think that if I could work that out as a possibility, then he should have been able to do so as well, the people around him at least. And so he should have had this kind of go for broke martyr mentality. I had an episode on that, right? They tried to kill him. So, go scorched earth, bring down the whole deep state. They tried to take him out. So what does he have to lose? Uh, but unfortunately, he will not be consistent to a principle come hell or high water, right? He will constantly change up his game, change what he says, be over the top with ridiculous comments, dangerous comments, um, no matter what the consequences of doing that are, right? He won't stick to a principle like, for example, peace. As Judge Napolitano would say it, he listens to the last person he talked to before he makes a speech, right? He believes whatever it is that they say. And I think the judge has been hinting at some sort of mental decline as well. It's just that he doesn't put it in those words. But seriously, if that is a problem, I don't think he would have done that when he was younger. So I think it is extremely problematic, especially if other people have figured out that that's what happens. And so they just need to be the one to talk to him before he makes a speech or he makes a policy decision. In other words, he doesn't listen to his cabinet, Tulsi Gabbard, those people. He doesn't listen to them at all. He listens to people who he's picked uh, to do some things for him. And he therefore is now cut off from the things that are going on in the government itself, right? And so I mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, the intelligence, the U.S. intelligence services together, right? The Department DNI. If you watch the latest Tom Cruise movie, Dead Reckoning, anyway, the guy who was, um, the Princess Bride, Wesley from Princess Bride, right? He was the guy who was in charge of the DNI, and that was the person who was in charge of all the intelligence services in the United States. Trump won't even listen to her, and so this is seriously disconcerting. He doesn't listen. He's not pro-peace. If that were his principle, then he would not go, even if it was a charade, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't pretend to bomb Iran, right? Or even make that part of this theater that he seems to be a part of. He wouldn't. He would bring an end to Ukraine. He would not have participated in the whole Syria thing. I believe Syria was under his watch. So that's the thing. He would just put his foot down because he's going scorched earth, right? He's saying, well, it doesn't matter. We're not going to do it anymore. And at least have a withdrawal, a drawdown that is not as incompetent and chaotic as the withdrawal from Afghanistan was. He had critiqued Biden and Obama. I see those clips all the time. Uh, Strangely, I don't think he criticized Bush all that much. Or if there are video clips like that, then I haven't seen them. But the ones that I've seen criticizes Biden and Obama for their failing to negotiate and simply going to war. But he's repeating what they have done. He's bombing rather than negotiating. He's giving ultimatums rather than negotiating. None of those are fair negotiating tactics. That's just, in fact, as a lot of people make the comparison with Pearl Harbor, Yeah, that was a sneak attack, which meant there was something criminally, morally wrong with it. And so for Israel to do something like that means that Israel is the one that is morally and criminally wrong when they attacked Iran. But the United States then takes their side. And so what's frustrating to me is that he does not educate himself with what's going on in the world. There were several times where I thought, okay, I think he was telling the truth there. So this whole thing where he's negotiating for peace with Iran, but then Israel bombs Iran, and supposedly America controls Iran. And so what does this mean? So Trump could have just said, come out and said, I had no knowledge of this. But then that would mean that he was ignorant, right? That he doesn't know what's going on. So the bombastic Trump then comes out and says, oh, I knew it all from the beginning. Well, then that makes all of his negotiations a lie, right? So all of the stuff that he kept saying, so, oh yeah, we're going to have lasting peace. So even for him to say, take the deal now, has no weight. There's no substance behind it because, right, Trump could be lying again. And so this unfortunate series of events makes him look like such an amateur, right? And some guests on Judge Knapp, that's what they basically say, is that he is seen as an amateur by people, leaders of other countries. I mean, think about Putin. Putin was KGB, right? Trump was a businessman who kept declaring bankruptcy to avoid having to pay out for the investments that he made, right? So, I mean, he's not even seen as a good business person. And so it might be this is the reason that Israel plays him all the time, where the military industrial complex plays him all the time, right? They fool him, they deceive him, they lead him on, they flatter him, they get him to see things their way. Maybe that's how they do it. And the reason why this is so disappointing is because the economics financial problem is getting bigger, right? He's declared war against Thomas Massie, right? Pretty much the only honest person in Washington. And so why is he doing that? Why is he going after Thomas Massie? I definitely not because he understands what Thomas Massie stands for, but it's because those people who are pulling his strings are telling him he's got to go, right? Like AIPAC, right? The Jewish lobby are basically telling him he's got to go. Well, what does Thomas Massie stand for? Reducing government spending. And so Trump made this big deal that he was going to bring Elon Musk on and have Doge. And so he's going to cut all the waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah, that was all another negotiating with Iran type thing. It's a lie. It was all a lie. The big beautiful bill increases spending, but $5 to $8 trillion, none of which is showing up on the budget because the debt ceiling has not been raised. So once they raise the debt ceiling, you'll see that debt explode off of $37 trillion. It'll probably be over 40 trillion by the time all of this is over. I'd be surprised if they actually talk about the debt ceiling, right? I think it works in Washington's better interest not even to discuss the debt ceiling anymore, just keep spending and pretend that they're going to vote on the debt ceiling bill sometime soon. But without it, they can still spend money. And I think that's what's actually happening. Uh, he said that he wants to weaken the dollar to bring manufacturing here, but that takes years to build factories in the domestic manufacturing industry here in America, which means that you have to invest millions and billions of dollars. But if you do that only for the Democrats to come to power again in 3 years, well, then you wasted all of that money because they're going to bring back all of the policies that Trump had rolled back. And so your investment then goes down the toilet. His response to phenomena like the BRICS Bank is that they better not do it, right? And so all he has is bullying, right? With a military that is not the best. He says, oh, we're 20 years ahead of any other weapons. No, we're not. We're not. And he talks about nuclear submarines. Yeah, a lot of them are in disrepair. So this is how you can tell. He doesn't go to his briefings. He knows nothing about the U.S. situation, how dire it is. Or maybe he does. And if he does it make, if he knows that we are in big trouble, does it, uh, make sense to get everyone mad at you, right? To become a target by antagonizing them, by pretending to be able to bomb the crap out of them? I don't know. And once there was all that bombing in the Middle East and Iran, basically threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz, the flow of oil, Trump says, "You better not. I'm going to keep an eye on you." It's like, dude, you just greenlit, by your own words, all of the bombing and the warring that's going on. He himself tried to bomb Yemen into the Stone Age, couldn't do it, right? So he himself is doing all of this bombing, ordering all this bombing. And then he turns around and says, "But you can't raise oil prices." It's just like I'm blown away by his bullying of everything. It's sort of like I punched someone 10 times in the face and I said, "You better not bleed." That kind of is what I hear Trump saying. Now, I've heard theories about the bombing, that Israel was surprised by Iran's ability to not only get their systems back up and running and then start counterattacking as soon as they did, totally surprised Israel. I think that Israel was not surprised by the hypersonic missiles because they got a taste of that before. Um, I've heard the theory that the US is helping everyone save face, right? It's because now Israel is so shocked and is suffering as a result of these missiles, but they can't back down because then they'd be perceived as weak, and then other Arab countries will come after them. So then America is going through this theater of bombing and being bombed so that everyone can save face, and then also draw down the war. And so Trump brags that he negotiated a ceasefire, and what does Israel do? They start bombing the crap out of Tehran in an effort to kill all of their leaders before the ceasefire is supposed to take effect, which is, come on. That's so dirty, right? Is really, I mean, are we really supporting the good guys? Come on. Good guys don't cheat like this. Uh, and also, remember that it's Israel that started it all, and they're going to get away with it, right? They murdered all these people, and they're going to get away with it. People are going to say, okay, well, better they died than we have World War III. And it just blows my mind, people's calculation like that, right? Because these are people that we're talking about. And so the problem of trust is a serious problem. But all of this is to basically say that politics, the game of politics, the strategies of politics, the field of politics is not simple, especially after decades of trade and increasing prosperity all over the world. Uh, there are relationships, there are supply chains, there are trade routes, which are so intertwined and so delicate. And to disrupt all of it means that there's going to be a lot of pain and starvation. All right. And it's so intertwined that it is not so easy to stop everything all at once. And so over the last, what, 3, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, everyone was talking about how Putin must die and we have to cut off all trade with Russia so they can't profit from all of that. And the whole time, the United States was buying oil and uranium from Russia. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how screwed up America is and all of this politicized lying, if that doesn't do the trick, then I think you're already lost. Stop listening to this episode, right? But Trump basically what's supposed to be different. You're supposed to release all those files, imprison politicians and their lackeys like Fauci and their ilk. So the simple explanation of all of this is that special interest groups are dictating policy, not Trump. The same people who are pulling Biden's strings, the same people who put Kamala Harris as the next candidate, the same people pushing Gary Newsom, whatever his name is, as the next candidate. It's their interests that are dictating policy, not Trump. You can call them transnationals if you want, globalists, military industrial complex, whoever is in charge of the bankers, whoever gives bankers their marching orders, wherever they are, that's who I'm talking about. They are the ones that are dictating all of the policies. They make profits and they push all of the losses onto us. Why do we have to live under the whim of these sickos, psychopaths, who don't give a fig about any of us? And so the solution is always simply freedom. Decrease government, slash it, get rid of it, burn it. Just burn it all down. End the Fed. Take away their money printing machine. Force them to be fiscally honest, right? If you're going to dox anyone, you should reveal the addresses of politicians, people who are getting us into this war, who are going to sacrifice our kids on the altar of their greed. The smaller government is, the more freedom we have, so that we don't care what Washington, D.C. is doing, right? That's what we want. They make all this noise and we just turn it off because it doesn't matter. They can't start a war. They can't force us to fight a war. They can't disrupt our lives. They can't even change the price of the gasoline, right? That's how ineffective and impotent I would love them to be. Freedom so that bad businesses suffer all of the time. All these transnational globalist types, right? Their business models are the worst, and they need us to subsidize and to bail them out all of the time, right? So we're in the matrix, and we don't have to be plugged in as little batteries, but they just rip us off all of the time, and they feed off of us so that it can do whatever it is they do to get their jollies off, right? So bad businesses, especially bad government, must suffer all of the time, right? Big bad business transnationals cannot use the United States to use us to bail them out. Freedom means justice is a priority, right? Because we need to be protected from each other's freedom. So you need a fair justice system. Freedom means less government, and it's our government that's creating all of the problems all over the world, right? In order to cheat on the world stage, people use war and regime change, right? That's actually injustice. This is hypocrisy. I mean, think about it. You have this huge, powerful transnational corporation, but your business is now going bankrupt because other smaller countries are doing it better and cheaper. And so no one's buying your stuff anymore. And so what should happen to you? You should go away. You should go bankrupt, declare bankruptcy, and another country's company rises to power. But that forces you to have to compete and be able to lower prices and increase the quality of the product to compete against all of these other countries in the world. So freedom means less government. Freedom means government can't cheat. People cannot cheat. Corporations of other countries cannot cheat. And the biggest cheat, of course, would be war, right? Instead of admitting that you lost and then business is going bankrupt, and so now you have to recover all of that. Instead of doing that, you just declare war and you destroy the other country's businesses and industries so that you get to remain on top while decreasing the quality of your product and increasing those prices. Freedom means that the individual is center stage. Each person wants and desires, they can be fulfilled. We are free to pursue what we want. In other words, we can do what we want. and then also take responsibility for those choices. And because we don't have freedom, the value of human life becomes so cheap, right? I hear people talking about war, for the sake of some subjective agenda, right? But they don't care who gets killed until someone they know dies or is killed. But as long as it's someone else, someone else's kid, someone else's loved one, they don't care. It's all good. And the value of human life, of other people's lives, has become so cheap. So to reverse all of this trend, we just need freedom. And hopefully, you know, before the big chaotic moment hits us, we'll be able to remember the lessons of freedom, you know, get rid of the state as we have it now and return to a free society. That's it. I will talk to you next time.